Okay, so today's class is what I call cable or cabling infrastructure because, well, nomen omen. I say it again. It's the nomen omen is the Latin expression for the name describes the purpose. So our course is called network cabling. We gotta talk about cabling a little bit too, right? It just makes sense, right? So why not have this here? Cabling infrastructure installation concepts. That's what I call this class here. Right? Now, yes, I'm showing you different types of terminations, and we're going through the labs. That's good. And I am also stressing out that this course, perhaps, maybe sometime in the future, can be called something like infrastructures, system infrastructures, data infrastructures. Cabling's part of it. Why am I saying that? It's because if you get if you get yourself a job in this field, you're not only going to install cable from one point to another. Yes, it's going to be a huge job, and what we're going to be talking about today actually. But yes, you're going to have to familiarize yourself with different types of systems, whether it be security systems, whether it be surveillance camera systems, whether it be school PA systems, pro audio systems, whatnot. And then you're going to have certain amount of knowledge as far as what a router is, what a hub is, what a patch panel is, and how things are more or less wired together in a structured way. This is not an IT course, so we're not talking about how to set up the network from the software point of view, from the software side. But even though we don't know, we don't know, we are not going to talk about that. We're supposed to know what goes with what when it comes to connecting things and the sequence of connections. So yes, you're going to use your laptop a lot because sometimes you're going to have to go into the programming, and you're not going to be expected to set things up. However, sometimes some so-called level support, level 2 tech support, which is those people who know the network from the software point, knowing the passwords, knowing all the setup for the specific network, sometimes they will ask you to tap into some of the equipment with your laptop, and they will tell you what to do because you're the one on site, and certain things they can log into remotely and certain things they can't, right? So yes, but not saying all that, knowing all the equipment, and sometimes you're going to be participating in partially in the whole big picture, and sometimes you're going to be given the task of completing the whole installation from the very beginning to the very end, which means you're going to have to know all the steps that have to do with that and all the procedures. But that, when I'm saying that, don't get intimidated. You're not going to be thrown into that right from the go, all right? So let's talk about what we can expect, what will be our expectations actually when it comes to the wiring. Yes, if you know how the surveillance system works, you know how the security system works and all that stuff, and if you're installing it, you're still going to have to do the basics. It's not going to do itself. The wiring has to be installed. And how is the wiring, how does it have to be installed? Well, it has to be done properly. Right? So there are certain rules that apply. Like, for example, you need to know when to use the cable that's designated fire rated of FT4 or FT6. It has to do with the jacketing. And I'll explain that thing to you later, what that means. I just want you to have that in the back of your mind. And other things that have to do with proper cable installations. And the rules are constantly changing. Like, for example, years ago, we were able to strap the cable, data cable, for example, or telephone cable. We were able to strap that cable to the rods that are hanging, the hanging rods that are supporting the ceiling tiles frame. Now it's a no-no. We cannot do that. We have to have independent suspension. It has to do with the fire safety, and the reasoning for that is that if there's a fire, then the fire people are going to go into the room, and they will try to tear some things down, like the ceiling structure and things like that. And the less things that is strapped to the ceiling structure, the safer it is for them. So that's the reasoning behind that, right? For any kind of wiring has to have independent suspension from any of the ceiling structure, like the ceiling tiles, right? So that said, let's go into see what we can expect, and I'm going to divide this into more than two parts, but I'm going to start with the differences between residential and commercial, which also splits into another two aspects, is framing. The framing that we're going to be dealing with is either going to be a timber wood framing, or steel framing. Slight difference between those two for us, okay? What we're interested in, we're going to talk about what we are interested in as far as the differences between those two. Since for us, the timber framing is more complex, I'm going to spend greater deal on discussing the timber framing structure than the steel, because steel is actually quite easy for us. However, it's mostly done in a commercial setting in Ontario. If you go to some of the western provinces, like for example here in Ontario, the business structure, stores, malls, whatnot, most of the framing you're going to find steel here in Ontario. However, if you go some of those western provinces, I don't know about the east, I have never been there, but I've done some installation in the western provinces. Then residential or commercial, you're going to find a lot of timber. So that's what we can expect when we go there. So when it comes to typical timber installation, what is it that we're up against when installing wiring? Rule number one for us, and the rule number one for us is try to get into the window of opportunity as far as timing. We want to, when it comes to especially residential setting, we want to be with our cabling there before the drywall gets put on. So here is the bare framing, and we can see what's there. We can install our devices. Some of the more difficult or more complex devices to install would be security devices. Like for example, here is a security alarm, so-called door contact. Okay, and this one is a flush door contact as opposed to surface mount door contact. So here's the door contact and here's the door. Put the door contact on the door. Put the ball in the net, right? Simple as that. Well, if we are there before the drywall gets put on, then we have a fighting chance, right, with the timber framing. When we get there after the drywall is installed, then we're going to have a little bit of a conversation with the client, because if this needs to be installed the way the client wants, after the drywall is put on, then we're going to have to talk about, well, some possibility of some drywall that will have to be disturbed here and there, right? And if the client doesn't want that, then well, we can't do the job, or we can go to alternative, do wireless devices, And sometimes we can get away with that, sometimes we can't. There were few jobs in my past that I refused, well, not refused, but the deal didn't go through because the client wanted to do residential. That's why I was always trying to stay away from residential. As far as retrofitting goes, when people are already living in the house and they need to install some things there, so you have to go there, take your shoes off, and some, their son and their daughter are eating sandwiches while watching TV, and there's some kind of a fluffy dog that tries to sniff you all around. And then you're going to really have to spend a lot of time doing the wiring. So, for example, if it was a small business, simple security alarm installation. If it was a small business, like a pet shop or barber shop or some kind of a store, right? I could get in there early in the morning, and I could have the whole installation done as far as security alarm, for example, or data or whatnot. I could have the whole thing done in one day. At the end of the day, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, please sign here. This is how this works. This is how that works. Okay. That same installation, when it comes to a residential setting where people are already moved in and the house is basically being occupied, it would take me a week to do. All right. So big difference. Now, when there's a new construction, if you are dealing with a home builder, then it's a different story. Right? Then yes, it's a pleasure to do because you're inside. Well, sometimes in the winters the windows are not there yet, but it depends. But usually, excuse me, you're inside, and the drywall is not there, so you can run the wires quite comfortably and properly, safely and efficiently. All right. So, what is it that we are dealing with? Here's a typical wall framing, one of the scenarios here. What do we have on the bottom here? We got a saw plate. Then on the top we got a double plate here. That's timber, that's wood. Well, 2x4, 2x6. It's not exactly 2 inches by 4 inches. 2x4 is slightly different dimensions, but close to that. Right? So we need to drill through some of the structure. So, for example, if we are to install a door contact, and basically this is in security alarms, this is called a door contact. What do we have? We have a reed switch. What's a reed switch? A reed switch, it's if you have, like, for example, saxophone mouthpiece, there's that reed there. So the switch is in that form. When you bring that magnet close to it, the switch closes. When you bring the magnet out of the way, then the switch opens. So it's a dry contact switch, passive element. It only requires one pair to operate, and it does not require power to operate. Right? It's just a switch that closes or opens. How are we going to install this? Okay, this here wired part is going to go in the framing here. And this magnet is going to go right in the door frame. So when you open the door, magnet goes away from the switch. When you close the door, magnet is going to be in close proximity. So that's how this switch operates. Well, how is it that we're going to wire that? Well, we're going to have to we have the opportunity to either drill through that door framing here, and maybe drill here, through here, and then you have some sort of freedom of how to run the wire further, or you can go all the way up here, and then you can go either into the ceiling space, or you can go into this the space between the studs or the framing, and you can take it up or you can take it down depending on the situation. So now, when it comes to residential, I always when I'm talking to people who they're about to build their own house, I always encourage them to have a basement with not a drywall ceiling. What's the best ceiling for the basement in today's house? It's a basement with dropped ceiling, with the ceiling tiles that you can pop up anytime. With the ever-changing technology, there's always going to be something new that is going to come up a couple years from now, or something like that. And you're going to have to run maybe one more wire to your TV station on, in your living room. Maybe you're going to have to run one more wire. You have that freedom to do that. And some people just, still say, I'm going to get a beautiful drywall because I just wanted, I wanted this thing to look nice. Yes, there are some nice looking decor type of ceiling tiles, and the comfort that you get with that is unbelievable. Plus, you get access to all the plumbing and electrical wiring and all that stuff. So, so you can take the wire down, and if you have that properly done ceiling space in the basement, then you have all kinds of freedom to run your wiring. Right? Some kind of a terminology is when the drywall is on, you're just going to see basically a drywall. You're not going to see what's inside. Just so you know, there's a lot that's happening there. There are certain drill bits that are 12 inches long, 8 inches long, 15 inches long. Some of the drill bits are 2 feet, 6 feet long drill bits. Yes, 6 to 8 feet long drill bits. They're called flexible drill bits, and I'll show you those. So, I'm not going to go through every single term here. I might ask you on the test, and I'll make sure that you have access to this thing. So I might ask you, what's this, what's that, what's the other thing, just so, just to get your attention to towards this kind of stuff here. Right. Here's another timber stud situation. Here's a saw plate, and here's the head or header, and here's a header. And here's something that's called the studs. Now, when it comes to timber installation, you're going to have those sometimes called nodgings, quite often here referred to as horizontals, or quite often you're going to hear the term on the construction site, horizontal studs. They are part of the timber structure, but see where the problem is here now. If you're running your cable from the top, and let's say the drywall is already on, you're only able to run the wire right to this horizontal stud. So if you're running cable from the top and you want to install a jack somewhere at this location here, you're going to have to do some gymnastics. Is it impossible? No. But you're almost getting into a surgical procedure kind of stuff. So just so you know, the timber framing, for sure, very rarely that this is not going to be there. You're going to have those horizontal studs they're going to deal with. I'm just telling you so you don't run the wire here and then you just going to find out that you're not able to get into this spot. So try to get from the bottom, right? There's a lot of surveying going on before you start running a wire, so you don't have to damage too much, disturb the already done installations, such as drywall being installed, walls are being painted, the pictures are hanging, and now they call you to do a security alarm. I had situations like that the deal just didn't go through, because I said, well, okay, client explain what they want, or I could just give them suggestions of what they need. And then my next question is, because I say, okay, Nice, beautiful house. So I'm going to say, is there any time that you're planning to have your house painted or something like that? Oh, we just painted. Oh, okay. Well, you realize that there's a very limited way of installing the wiring, so some of the drywall will have to be disturbed, and I don't want to do that because you just painted. So, okay, well, the other alternative is go with wireless devices, and the wireless devices are more expensive. So, like for example, the price of a door contact could be $3, your cost. Right? You can sell it to a client for, put a markup naturally, but it's not that expensive. Well, if it's just one. If you're doing 50 or 100 of them, then things add up. But let's just one, right? Let's just say one. The same price of a wireless door contact would be somewhere in the range of anywhere between $70 and $100. So then they have couple doors, few windows, things add up. Right? But is it really way more expensive to install the wireless as opposed to wired? For the wired devices, you have to spend the time on running the wire to location, terminating da 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 da. Right? So yes, the door contact will cost you $3, or maybe it's going to cost the client $5 or $7 just for the contact, but all the time for running the wire. That also has to be added. When it comes to wireless, yes, the price of the device is more expensive, but you're not spending the time on bringing the wire into it. So the final price, works up to be more or less the same. And it's just a matter of explaining that to the client, right? So just don't lose the deal. And sometimes, no matter what you do, you just can't explain. Maybe some client doesn't, change their mind. They don't want to spend that money or whatever happened. And they're going to try to make it look like it's your fault because you're too expensive. That's fine. Just be polite, always, right? When it comes to steel framing, quite often you will not have those horizontals. So you're going to have quite open concepts all the way from the top to the bottom. And sometimes the ceiling heights in some of the warehouse space in the back of the store or storage space, some of those walls are 20 feet high, right? And you're going to have an open space right here. So you can drop the wire, and with the gravity, it's just going to end up where, just right here, cut the opening for the jack, and there you go. As they say, the name of your uncle is Bob, right? So that's as far as steel framing. Timber framing, you will have those horizontals for sure. Where are we? Okay. That is, you see, that's the first slide that we had. All right, here's the second slide. All right, nudgings, and this is what I was talking to you about, horizontal bracing pieces used between wall studs or floor joists to give rigidity to the wall or floor frames of a building. Nudgings might be made of timber, steel, or aluminum. Although, as I said, when it comes to timber framing, more likely you're going to find those. When it comes to steel framing, more likely they won't be there. Right? If made out of timber, they are cut slightly longer, so to speak, so they are just to fit there. So they fit there nice and snug, so they're not going to fall off. Here is another thing that we're going to have to deal with when it comes to installing wiring. Not only we're going to have to deal with the horizontals, but quite often you're going to have to deal with the insulation that is there. And mostly, although it's not a rule because a properly built house will have, excuse me, will have insulation in the interior walls as well. An interior wall would be a wall that has a room on one side and some other room that is inside the house on the other side. Exterior wall would be a wall that on one side there's the inside of the building, and on the other side of the wall is the outside of the building. So that will be the exterior walls. There are certain rules that we really need to pay attention to when it comes to installing wiring on the exterior walls, and it's extremely important that we need to know certain concepts. So that's why we have this class here. Now, when it comes to insulation, it is going to make it harder for us to pull the wire. That's why you want to get there before the drywall is installed. But where is the other side of the rainbow when you talk about the window of opportunity for us to install the wiring? You want to be there after the air ducts are installed. You don't want to install your wiring before the air ducts are installed, or the HVAC system, those aluminum piping that transfer air. Because if you do that before the air duct people come over, you can almost count on that your wires are going to get damaged. And that, as far as I'm going to say that on the record, right? I could say way more, but maybe I could lose my job. Not really, but all right. So you are going to have to deal with also with insulation that's there. So you won't be just able to just drill a hole in the top plate here and drop the wire, because here's the insulation. In the interior walls, quite often you're going to have empty space. Exterior wall, for sure, you're going to have insulation. Well, then you're going to have to use maybe some flexible drill bits, but then the problem with the flexible drill bits is that if you drill too much, it's going to wrap itself around that insulation, and or the insulation is going to wrap itself around it, and you're going to have some kind of trouble. You can get yourself in trouble as far as not being able to pull your drill bit out, right? Or you're going to crumble the insulation inside, which is going to in turn cause some very serious problems. It might, all right? So, so again, the best thing is to install wheel wiring before the drywall comes on. Sometimes you're going to have to install some additional wiring after the whole thing is being built and the drywall is installed and painted. So just so you know, yes, there are ways to do that, but it takes more time, and you have to be really more careful. Just so you know, you have to know what's behind that drywall. It helps you a lot. Okay. Here we have a typical framing construction, again, when it comes to mostly residential. And sometimes it could be also a commercial setting. Now, what you're going to have, sometimes you're going to have a timber framing installed on the cinder blocks right here. This is the outside wall. And you're going to have a little bit of space to run your wires. Sometimes you're going to find the drywall mounted right on the cinder blocks. There will be no space for you to run the wires. Although, in some cases, you can, if you can get access from the top of the wall here, where there's those openings in the cinder blocks, and those openings can be aligned. So you can drop a steel chain and it's going to find itself where it's supposed to. Just to remember that sometimes the way the construction is done is that sometimes 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, up to 5 of those cinder blocks, or whatever was done after, during the building process, some of those bottom cinder blocks are filled with concrete. and you won't be able to drop your chain all the way down. So it's a good idea to maybe push some glow sticks there and see how far it's going to go. And then you can measure where you can just drill one hole. And if the client really wants it on that height, then you say, okay, you know what, we're just going to have to surface, run the wire on the surface, right? Or maybe at least for that part. Then what we have here is a bit of a framing happening here, so nothing new. And here's how the drywall is being installed. So yes, sometimes you're going to have a little bit of a space to run your wires. This will be interior wall, and this would be exterior wall. Now, as you can see here, there is no insulation, but we do have horizontal studs here. Can we go through them without disturbing? Yes, we can, but it's a very fragile procedure, not for the faint of heart. No, I'm saying that with a grain of salt here, right? Yes, you can do it, but whenever I had to do that kind of stuff, I would always say to the client, look, just so you understand, this is what you requested. There is a slight possibility of the drill bit coming out through the drywall. Just so you know. And as soon as they agreed, yeah, I can do it. If they don't agree to it, then look, I can't guarantee, right? So sometimes it will be somewhat stressful situation when you have to go through that. And it feels so good when you drill through that with the flexible drill bit from, for example, from here, and you drill because you don't see what's going on here, and you can see that the drill bit went through, and you look at one side, and it's nice and clean. You look on the other side, nice and clean. Oh, it's a really good feeling. All right? So yes, it's possible to do that, and I'll show you how. Well, of course, there would be those joists. Now, when it comes to running the wire, see, that's why I see here, let's say this is a basement and somebody did the drywall all the way here. Well, if you really want to install some of the wiring, then it's a little bit of an inconvenient situation, right? As opposed to if there was a drop ceiling with ceiling tiles, you just pop the tile and you have all the access to, Now, sometimes you can get away with this if the wall just ends at some sort of maybe a furnace room or something like that. Then you can have the open one side here. And depending on how the joists run, you can run the wire from here to here, but you wouldn't be able to run the wire from here to here in there. But you can just run it outside and drop it in there, push it in there. So depending on how the joists are being positioned, you might want to take a look with a flashlight and so on and see if there's anything else there, right, to run your wires. Now, with all this that we're talking about not service cables. We're talking about data wires. Let me check the time, how we're doing with time. We're doing good. All right, so that goes with the top and it goes with the bottom as well, as far as the joists. Now this here is a cinder block outside wall or exterior wall. There are different other types of walls. Well, if there's a siding there and just framing and whatnot, sometimes you don't have the cinder blocks. We're going to have to be mindful of certain things when, I'm just trying to, there we go. Here is something that is called a flexible bit. It's a flexible drill bit. It can be 6 feet long, it can be 8 feet long. Best if it has a kind of a screw point tip, because you can just push it into you can just tap it into the, well, softer than metal, which is timber framing, and it's not going to dance around when you start drilling. Now you can have those guides, drill bit guides, and that's how this thing is being used, because if you just cut out an opening for a jack or for a plate, if you push that drill bit in, it's probably going to end up at the joint between the drywall and the timber. And when you start drilling, the drill bit is going to take the least path of resistance, or path of the least resistance, and it's going to come out through the drywall, almost for sure. So you need to make sure that this thing is spot on, straight into the timber. And this kind of a drill bit guide will help you. With time, as you gain experience, you can kind of get the feel of it. That's all I can say to you, right? Of how to find that center spot. Now, here's an exterior wall. There's a little bit different situation that we're going to deal with. This here could be external wall, this could be internal wall. Let's talk about the exterior wall. What is it that we have to deal with? Well, here's the wall. Here's the outside. Here is the inside. The outside will have moisture barrier, breathable membrane, high-tech textile or oiled paper. The idea, just to make a long story short, is that yes, you want to have good insulation between the outside and the inside. However, you want to have some permittivity, which means that wall has to breathe a little bit for the purpose of all kinds of mushrooms not being able to grow there. So that's why sometimes when there would be an old construction from 80 years ago, 100 years ago, and the house was built certain way, so the walls breathe certain way, and then you come over and install the brand new windows that were made in 2025, and all of a sudden you get black mold around it. Yes, it's possible because you're dealing with two different worlds. Now, the wall has to breathe, but it also has to block things, but just breathe at the right rate. Now, inside, here's something that's called a vapor barrier. Impervious membrane, aluminum foil, or plastic. And again, the purpose of that is to insulate the outside from the inside in a specific way. So yes, you have some kind of airtight all the way around installation, but the wall still breathes in some proper way. And then you're going to have maybe a siding or something like that to protect the outside wall. And over here you're going to have plasterboard, non-flammable, hard, easy drywall. Okay. And over here you have the insulation, and over here you have, of course, the good old famous horizontal studs that we all love when pulling wire. This is, right here. Here's what we're talking about. The vapor barrier, impervious membrane, aluminum or foil, plastic. Well, that's what it looks like. What do we have here? This, you can tell that this is an exterior wall, and you can tell that this is an exterior wall because you can see that there's insulation between the studs, and we have that long name that I just said for the vapor barrier, plastic foil. And any of those cracks or openings they are sealed with the tuck tape. That's the red tape that's there. A lot of red tape when building a house you have to go through. All right? And that's not this kind of red tape I'm talking about, but this one also. All right. Now you can see that even any of those openings for devices or device boxes, they are also sealed. including the back of the box. It's also sealed, so everything is sealed. You need to have that thing sealed, or else, and I'll show you what or else means. So whenever you need to add, because sometimes you're going to get in there, you're going to have to run your wires when this thing is already installed. So here's what you do to actually, well, make yourself look like somebody smart, as opposed to somebody who is not really smart and not getting paid, or maybe getting sued. No. You need to know what to do, and you need to know what not to do. What not to do is just go at it, install the device box, and leave that thing disturbed and walk away. That's what not to do. What to do is, here's something that's called a poly pen. You can go to any hardware store and you can find those in the electrical section. You can buy them by boxes and they're cheap. Right? It's called a poly pen. If you want to install a device box, now this is electrical here, but it applies to data as well. You install the poly pen and you seal it with a tack tape. Not a duct tape, tack tape. Right? In order for the whole thing to be installed. And if you need to disturb that poly pen to run wires in there, you seal that as well. It's a must for the exterior wall. What happens if you just do it carelessly? You're going to end up with something like this. It doesn't happen overnight, but it can happen within a year. It's the black mold. Black mold is, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to give you all the details of what black mold does to you. But I also don't have to be a doctor to tell you that please do not eat rat poison because you're going to die. Right? So same thing here. This is almost as bad as a rat poison. It's I can say that it's carcinogenic. It's as soon as you smell that smell of a black mold, which is like a moldy basement kind of a smell, stingy smell, here's what you do. Just get out. Don't stay there. Right? Do not breathe that. Just breathing that air can actually be hazardous to your health. You can have serious hazard. If that happens, then you need to make sure you get some qualified people coming in there and treating that, removing the black mold. It's not easy to remove. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Signs of black mold right there. But before that happens to drywall, you're going to have this for a long time. Now, here are, you can read that when you download this thing, symptoms of what happens to you when you get exposed to black mold. Again, I have limited expertise on that and limited authority of being able to say one thing or another because I'm not a doctor of medicine. However, there are some things that are common knowledge that I can't say here, and this is as far as I'm going to go with the descriptions. Exterior walls give the shape home, which we were talking about. A layer of material such as, okay, this is what we were talking about. You can just read that and put that thing together, put the whole puzzle together in your head. So this is going to reinforce the knowledge. I'm not going to read through this because we just talked about it. Reading it for you is just going to reinforce the knowledge when it comes to that. And there's some links and reference links when it comes to that. All right, do we have time? No, we don't. Okay, that's actually good because the next time we're going to see each other, it's going to be in-person class, and for the other sections, it's going to be online. We're going to talk about the stages when it comes to wire installation. Now, we just talked about the structural concepts and all that stuff. And then the next time we're going to see each other, we're going to talk about the stages of wiring installation. And why do we have stages? Well, it's the logistics, it's the structured cabling concept, or the network cabling concept, all right? So you can have some sort of a structure so you can be efficient at doing your job. So it's going to take you a month instead of 6 months to do it. That's one thing. Two is it helps you with billing. Right? And I'm going to tell you probably more than once, when it comes to your own private, well, if you work for somebody else, then the office worries about the business logistics. But if you have a business of your own, the recognizing the stages of the job being performed helps you with the finances as well. What do I mean by that? If you can establish a certain stage, like for example, a rough-in stage, which we'll talk about next time, what that is, then you can have a stage that you're going to be able to bill the client to complete certain stage of the contract. Because the last thing you want to do is to have a huge project and have the whole lump sum after you're done. A lot of companies go bankrupt during the process. And what you're going to do, you're going to invest your own equipment, your own time, pay the people that you're going to hire, and you're not going to get paid because some contractor went bankrupt. It happens, right? But so you're protecting yourself financially by billing the client in stages, right? So that's one thing. But the most important thing is having stages in wiring installation helps you with doing the job properly and efficiently. Okay, but that's the topic for next class this week.